The world watched. From the bustling streets of New York to the quiet villages in the Philippines, eyes were glued to screens, hearts filled with anticipation. This was not just a moment for the Catholic Church, but for the entire world. The air was thick with expectation, as people of all faiths and backgrounds tuned in to witness history in the making. The Catholic Church held its breath. The faithful gathered in cathedrals and churches, their prayers mingling with the whispers of hope and uncertainty. The grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica stood as a silent witness to the unfolding drama, its ancient walls echoing the collective heartbeat of millions. A new pope had ascended to the throne of St. Peter. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a man known for his humility and deep connection with the people, was now the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics. His election marked a significant moment, a turning point that many hoped would bring renewed vigor and direction to the Church. All eyes were on Pope Tagle, a man of deep faith and even deeper convictions. His past actions and words had already painted a picture of a leader who was not afraid to confront challenges head-on. As he stood before the world, his demeanor was one of calm resolve, a quiet strength that spoke volumes. What would his first move be? The question lingered in the minds of many. Would he continue the path set by his predecessors or carve out a new direction for the Church? The curiosity was palpable as people speculated and debated, each hoping for a glimpse into the future under his leadership. How would he choose to lead a global flock grappling with ancient traditions and modern anxieties? The world was changing rapidly, and the Church was not immune to these shifts. Balancing the rich heritage of the past with the pressing needs of the present was no small task. Pope Tagle's approach to this delicate balance would define his papacy. The answer came swiftly and decisively. In his first public address, Pope Tagle made it clear that he was a man of action. His words were measured yet powerful, resonating with a sense of urgency and purpose. The crowd's reaction was a mix of awe and admiration as they witnessed a leader who was ready to take bold steps. Pope Tagle declared his intention to continue the reforms of his predecessor, Pope Francis. This was a significant statement, signaling continuity and a commitment to the progressive changes that had already begun. The legacy of Pope Francis, known for his focus on inclusivity and social justice, would be carried forward. Specifically, he would push forward with the inclusion of women in leadership positions within the Vatican. This was a groundbreaking move, one that challenged centuries-old traditions and opened the door for greater gender equality within the Church. The decision was met with both applause and resistance, reflecting the diverse opinions within the global Catholic community. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout the Church and beyond. Headlines blazed with the news, and discussions erupted in parishes and homes around the world. Some saw it as a long overdue change, while others viewed it with skepticism and concern. The ripple effect of this decision was felt far and wide. It was a bold move, a clear signal that Pope Tagle intended to be a reformer, a leader unafraid of challenging the status quo. His vision for the Church was one of inclusivity, compassion, and forward-thinking. As the sun rose over Vatican City, a new era dawned, filled with hope and the promise of transformation. Pope Tagle's decision did not emerge from a vacuum. It built upon the groundwork laid by Pope Francis, who had made tentative but significant strides in recognizing the vital role of women in the Church. Francis had appointed women to key positions in the Vatican bureaucracy, signaling a willingness to break with centuries of male dominance. These appointments, while groundbreaking, were met with resistance from some quarters within the Vatican. Conservative elements saw them as a threat to the Church's hierarchical structure. They argued that such reforms undermined the traditional understanding of the priesthood and the Church's teachings on gender roles. Pope Tagle's decision to continue these reforms was seen by many as a direct challenge to these conservative forces. It was a statement that the Church could no longer ignore the voices of half its members. The reforms, though in their early stages, held the potential to reshape the face of Catholicism. The possibility of women serving as cardinals, advising the Pope directly, and holding positions of real authority within the Vatican was no longer unthinkable. It was a prospect that filled many with hope, a sign that the Church was finally moving into the 21st century. The initial reaction to Pope Tagle's announcement was a mixture of cautious optimism and outright disbelief. There were whispers of change in the hallowed halls of the Vatican, a sense that something monumental was underway. Liberals within the Church rejoiced, seeing it as a long overdue recognition of women's equality and dignity. But the announcement also triggered a backlash. Conservative cardinals and bishops voiced their disapproval, some even going so far as to question the new Pope's authority. They argued that such drastic changes were not only unnecessary but also detrimental to the Church's unity and its timeless teachings. The weight of tradition, the winds of progress. The debate over women's roles in the Church was not new. It had been a topic of discussion and contention for many years, with various factions within the Church holding differing views on the matter. Some believed that tradition should be upheld at all costs, while others argued for a more progressive approach that reflected the changing times. It had been simmering for decades, fueled by changing societal norms and a growing awareness of gender equality. The role of women in society had evolved significantly, and many felt that the Church needed to evolve as well. Women were no longer content to be passive participants in their faith. They wanted to be active leaders and decision-makers. This growing demand for equality was not just a reflection of societal changes, but also a call for the Church to live up to its own teachings of justice and love. The Second Vatican Council, held in the 1960s, had opened a window for dialogue and reform. It was a time of great change and optimism within the Church as leaders sought to address various issues and bring the Church into the modern era. The Council's discussions included topics such as liturgical reforms, ecumenism, and the role of the laity, including women. While the Council made some strides in promoting greater participation of the laity, the question of women's roles remained largely unresolved. However, the Church's deeply ingrained traditions, coupled with theological interpretations that emphasized male leadership, had proven to be formidable obstacles. The idea that only men could hold certain positions of authority was deeply rooted in centuries of doctrine and practice. This resistance to change was not just about maintaining the status quo, it was also about preserving a sense of identity and continuity within the Church. For many, the idea of women in leadership roles was seen as a threat to the very fabric of their faith. Pope Tagle's decision, therefore, was not merely about administrative reform. It was a bold and courageous move that sought to address long-standing issues of gender inequality within the Church. By opening up more roles to women, Pope Tagle was not only acknowledging their contributions but also challenging the traditional power dynamics that had excluded them for so long. His decision was a reflection of a broader vision for a more inclusive and just Church, one that truly lived up to its teachings of equality and respect for all. It was about confronting centuries of patriarchy and challenging the very foundations upon which the Church's power structure rested. This was not an easy task, as it required a willingness to question long-held beliefs and practices. But it was a necessary step if the Church was to remain relevant and true to its mission in the modern world. Pope Tagle's actions were a testament to the power of faith and conviction in the face of adversity, and a reminder that progress often requires courage and determination. A Church divided. The Catholic Church, a global institution with over 1 billion members, has always been a tapestry of diverse views and opinions. Pope Tagle's decision brought these divisions into sharp focus. On one side stood those who yearned for a more inclusive and egalitarian Church, one that reflected the realities of the modern world. These individuals, often younger and more progressive, saw the Church as a living entity that must evolve to stay relevant. They argued that inclusivity and equality were not just modern concepts, but were deeply rooted in the teachings of Christ. They believed that the Church should be a sanctuary for all, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, or social status. They pointed to the growing disconnection between the Church and the younger generation, emphasizing that without change, the Church risked becoming obsolete. On the other side stood those who clung to tradition, fearing that any deviation from established norms would lead the Church down a slippery slope toward relativism and a loss of its moral authority. These traditionalists, often older and more conservative, viewed the Church as a bastion of timeless truths and values. They argued that the Church's teachings were divinely inspired and should not be altered to fit the changing tides of society. They feared that embracing modernity would dilute the Church's core message and weaken its spiritual foundation. The battle lines were drawn and the stakes were high. This internal conflict was not just a matter of differing opinions, but a profound struggle over the very identity and future of the Catholic Church. Both sides were passionate and deeply committed to their vision of what the Church should be. As debates raged on, it became clear that finding a middle ground would be a monumental challenge. The world watched closely, aware that the outcome of this division could have far-reaching implications for the global Catholic community and beyond. Beyond the walls of the Vatican, the impact of Pope Tagle's decision extended far beyond the Vatican walls. It resonated with Catholics and non-Catholics alike, sparking conversations about gender roles, religious authority, and the nature of leadership in the 21st century. The world was watching, eager to see how this drama would unfold. Would other Christian denominations follow suit? Would this embolden women within their own ranks to demand greater participation in decision-making? The implications were far-reaching and impossible to ignore. Section 8. The long road ahead. Pope Tagle's decision was just the first step on a long and uncertain road. Implementing these reforms would require navigating complex theological arguments, overcoming entrenched resistance, and finding ways to bridge the deep divisions within the Church. It would require patience, perseverance, and a willingness to engage in honest and sometimes painful dialogue. The journey would be arduous, but the potential rewards were immeasurable: a more just, equitable, and vibrant Church for all. A future yet unwritten. As Pope Tagle embarked on this ambitious path of reform, the world held its breath. Would he succeed in bringing about lasting change within the Catholic Church? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Pope Tagle's papacy would be anything but ordinary. He had signaled his intention to be a transformational leader, a shepherd unafraid to challenge his flock and lead them into uncharted territory. The future of the Catholic Church was unwritten, but it was filled with possibility. Please subscribe to our channel History Documentary Hub for more insightful videos and intriguing content.